Orbán opposed Ukraine again, Russian missile fuel plant hit by new Ukrainian drones, and the Kremlin backs Kim Jong Un for more troops to fight in Ukraine. That's in our episode. Subscribe and comment to help amplify Ukraine's voice and counter Russian aggression. This is The Gaze. Viktor Orbán is once again throwing a wrench in Ukraine's plans. Hungary's government has yet to publish official results of the controversial Voks 2025 referendum on Ukraine's EU membership. But opposition leader Peter Magyar is calling it a failure. Prime Minister Orbán launched a referendum asking Hungarians if they support Ukraine joining the EU. But throughout the campaign, Orbán pushed voters to say no, using fear tactics about Hungarian soldiers in coffins, economic trouble for farmers, and losing EU subsidies if Ukraine joined. The vote ended on June 20th, but no official results have been shared yet. The government website only says the vote is over and results will come soon. Meanwhile, anti-Ukrainian and anti-EU propaganda was plastered over the country, paid for by who knows, maybe they were Hungarians themselves, whose taxes help fund Orbán's party.
The consultations were accompanied by aggressive incitement of groundless hatred toward everything related to Ukraine. Such an information campaign has been ongoing for many months. Hungarian officials have been inventing non-existent threats allegedly coming from Ukraine in order to unjustifiably intimidate Hungarian citizens, from the statement of the Ukrainian Ministry for Foreign Affairs.
Peter Magyar, leader of the TISA party and main political rival of Orbán, called the referendum a propaganda campaign paid for with billions of Hungarian forints from public money. He said very few people took part. He thinks only 3 to 7% of mailed ballots were returned, which means about 600,000 voters at most. He also criticized the process for not being transparent and said the voters couldn't be checked, especially the online voters. People could use different emails to vote multiple times, which could unfairly increase the vote count.
A complete failure. It's funny that the propaganda is trying to discredit the fake figure of 2 million they announced by saying that a notary will certify the result. What exactly? Anonymous ballots that anyone can fill out, or voting on the internet where anyone can vote as many times as they want? Peter Magyar, leader of the Hungarian TISA party.
Magyar highlighted his The Voice of the Nation initiative, where over 1.1 billion Hungarians participated and 58% supported Ukraine joining the EU. He plans to use this result in his policies if he wins the 2026 elections. He said this lets Hungarians decide for themselves and show that Ukraine don't really threaten Hungary. If only Russian tanks in Europe were as threatening as Ukrainians in the EU, think about it first. The European Union will give Ukraine 30.6 billion euros in financial help this year, according to European Council meeting reported by Ukrinform news agency. They also approved a new program to fund drone production.
We have just discussed how important it is for Ukraine to invest in the extraordinary, agile and innovative Ukrainian defense industry. Therefore, we have designed a funding program of 150 billion euros, we call it SAFE, where member states, but also Ukraine and other partners, can take these loans to invest in the Ukraine defense industry, which has shown its ability to innovate, to produce fast and reliably, at scale. We can learn a lot from you, what that is concerned, but in this way we can support you also for the survival of Ukraine.
EU leaders promised to keep supporting Ukraine's rebuilding and recovery, linking it to Ukraine's future EU membership. The Council asked the EU to continue with Ukraine's membership talks, opening new negotiation steps when the conditions are met. The European Commission said Ukraine is ready to start these steps. They also fully support efforts to hold those responsible for war crimes during Russia's war against Ukraine accountable. Progress was welcomed on creating a special tribunal for the crime of aggression through the Council of Europe. The EU resolution passed with 26 countries voting yes. The only country that voted against was Hungary, led by Mr. Orbán. And on June 26, Ukrainian drones from the main intelligence directorate hit military depots in Bryansk, Russia with a precise strike. According to intelligence sources, the target was a facility of the Logistics Support Center of the Russian Armed Forces, where large quantities of missile fuel and petroleum products were stored. Local residents reported a series of explosions and a large-scale fire that engulfed an oil depot in the Vokinsky district of the city. The operation involved Bober or Beaver, modern Ukrainian unmanned systems capable of operating deep behind enemy lines. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, 19 drones were shot down over Rostov Oblast, 13 over Volgograd Oblast, 4 over temporarily occupied Crimea, and 1 each over Belgorod, Bryansk and Samara Oblast. In local social media groups, the authorities are urging residents not to post anything or take photos, a tried and true method to ensure nothing ever happened. They claim that all UAVs were shot down and that there were no impacts on casualties as usual. And what is also interesting about modern Ukraine warfare, advanced missile drone Peklo, or Hell, but we try to use Ukraine's name for this. It literally means the place where the heat is pretty good. How was it, Russians? So let's return to the theme. What's happened? Ukraine Peklo struck the crossing over the Ida River in Luhansk region and a nearby pumping station. This marks almost the 6th successful deployment of these drones on the battlefield. On December 6, 2024, on the Day of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky handed over the first batch of the advanced Peklo missile drones to the defense forces. The Peklo flies reportedly about 700 km per hour, powered by a turbojet engine. Drones missiles are simpler than classic cruise missiles, with a smaller warhead, around 50 kilograms compared to about 500 kilograms, and cost significantly less, while a cruise missile can cost $1.5 million or more, a drone missile costs in the hundreds of thousands.
The main thing is to be able to produce these small missiles in large quantities. We're talking about hundreds of units. The engines can be bought. We can manufacture the navigation systems. We can also produce the warheads. The key is quantity. In modern conditions, you can't launch expensive missiles like the Neptune at every target because it's too costly. Such missiles should be reserved for airfields where expensive aircraft are stationed and so on. Pavlo Narozhny, military expert and founder of the company Reactive Mail for UAF.
Ukraine's Minister for Strategic Industries, Herman Smetanin, commented that the Peklo is not only being produced in series but is also constantly being improved. Work is ongoing to make it stronger against electronic attacks and to improve how well it works and hit targets precisely. The Russian Federation's stockpiles of Soviet-made armored vehicles are running low, according to the Institute for the Study of War in its report as of June 26. The ISW cites the result of an analysis of satellite images conducted by an unmanned source on social media. True or not, the fact is the Kremlin is dependent really way more on cannon fodder resource, not equipment, whether Soviet or modern, and to replenish these resources, North Korean soldiers are expected to arrive to fight against the Ukrainian army, more in the report.
North Korea may deploy additional troops to Russia to participate in the war against Ukraine in July or August 2025, according to South Korean lawmaker Lee Sung-kwon, as reported by Reuters. This information was shared by South Korea's National Intelligence Service during a closed briefing to the Parliamentary Intelligence Committee. North Korea is reportedly already preparing the contingent.
In return for North Korea sending artillery ammunition and missiles to Russia, Pyongyang is likely receiving technical advice on satellite launches and missile guidance systems, Lee said, citing the NIS briefing. From a Reuters publication.
On June 17th, Russian Security Council Secretary Sergei Shoigu visited Pyongyang once again. The deployment of North Korean troops may have been a topic of his discussions with Kim Jong Un. However, Shoigu himself claimed the visit resulted in North Korea's promise to send thousands of deminers and construction workers to Russia.
Chairman of State Affairs Kim Jong Un has decided to send 1,000 sappers to Russia to clear mines from Russian territory, as well as 5,000 military construction workers to help restore damaged infrastructure. Sergei Shoigu, Russian Security Council Secretary from the Meduza publication.
Russian dictator Vladimir Putin publicly acknowledged the involvement of North Korean troops in Russia's war against Ukraine only in May 2025. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had already said back in December 2024 that North Korean forces were taking part in assaults in Russia's Kursk region. According to South Korean intelligence, Pyongyang sent around 15,000 soldiers to Russia, where they took part in combat operations in the Kursk area.
The total casualties amount to more than half of the approximately 11,000 DPRK troops initially deployed to Kursk region. Open source reports suggest the DPRK has subsequently deployed limited numbers of additional troops to Kursk. Significant DPRK casualty rates have almost certainly been sustained, primarily through large, highly attritional dismounted assaults. UK Ministry of Defence on X social network.
According to Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrskyi, Ukraine's operation in the Kursk region played a key role in diverting tens of thousands of Russian troops, including North Korean mercenaries, away from more critical battlefronts.
Our Kursk operation once pulled back nearly 63,000 Russian troops, and about 70,000 total when including North Koreans. This helped ease pressure on key front lines and gave us time to regroup. The enemy's much-promised capture of Pokrovsk, expected since September 2024, still hasn't happened, in part thanks to the Kursk operation. Oleksandr Syrskyi, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, during a press briefing.
Experts believe that under the guise of sending laborers, North Korea could deploy military personnel to free up Russian operational reserves, which are currently pinned down by Ukraine's defense forces in the Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk regions.
It seems North Korean troops will be disguised as civilian workers while operating on Russian territory, especially in combat zones in Kursk and Belgorod. The reality is, Russia is critically short of operational reserves for combat in Sumy region.
The Kremlin is leveraging its ties with North Korea to obtain artillery munitions and manpower in exchange for advanced military technologies. A report by the Multilateral Sanctions Monitoring Group, which includes the US, Japan, South Korea, and the UK, notes that Russia has sent electronic warfare systems to North Korea via cargo planes. Experts warn that this cooperation helps Pyongyang circumvent UN sanctions and accelerates its militarization. Reported by Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.
And that's it for today. This was News Digest from the Gaze. Thank you for staying with us. Your attention helps amplify Ukraine's voice across the globe. Please comment and subscribe and stand with Ukraine in the fight for freedom and sovereignty. See you again next time. Until then, stay informed and stay strong.